Hey everybody, on the run with Beards and Dunn, back for another episode.
Dunn!
Beards.
Hey,
I can't believe it's been a week already.
It seems like it was just yesterday.
I can't imagine that. But anyway, I'm trying to think. We kind of got off with the Diet Pepsi 10K in Sioux Falls. Then you went out and ran a 15K out in New York a week later.
Yes.
Against, I think you told me, Herb Lindsey.
Yeah.
Herb was like the number one road racer in the United States. That guy was a stud.
And he wasn't a marathoner, but anything from like the half or 25K down, and he was built like a wrestler.
You know who he reminds me? Whenever I saw Herb Lindsey in pictures, Jan Kane.
Yeah.
Kind of the Kano, kind of a stocky, powerful.
Right.
Not big, but not big, but bigger than your scrawny average little runner. But man, that guy could motor.
Well, so I'm coming off of Boston, coming off of the Pepsi race in Sioux Falls a week before, and then I go, and Syracuse is not a flat area. It's hilly. And Herb Lindsey's there, Stan Mavis, a bunch of other guys. And we go out, and I go out with the guys. We go through like the first mile in, I think, 4:29. Ooh. And I'm hanging on. And then when I hit the hills, my legs just, it felt like I was carrying 100-pound weights.
But you ended up getting third place.
Yeah, I got third. I ran 45:15. So, I ran some 5-minute pace.
Yeah.
So I was pretty tickled, with that. And
so other than that, okay, so you're back into your training routine.
Oh, yeah.
Doing your 120 to 140 probably, kind of in that range.
Yeah, let's take a quick look here because let's see here. So the week of the Sioux Falls race, that week when it ended, I had I had 120 miles that week, 112 the next week, 122 the week after that, 120 the week after that, and then 119 the week before Grandma's.
So before your week of taper, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
I know. I know. So let's back up. You just ran this 208. Now 8 weeks exactly later, you're going to run Grandma's.
Right.
And I kind of think I know some of it. They were very happy. They wanted you back because you ran 209 the year before, and just having you at the race, being a Minnesota runner at the biggest race. The Twin Cities Marathon wasn't their inaugural is going to be that fall,
right?
And I think that might have been something you were thinking about, but that was not till October, and so you got plenty of time to put that on the back burner. But there was also some financial. New Balance, obviously, you had signed this contract now,
yes.
And so going back to Grandma's and winning and possibly setting an American or a world record.
Right.
And then I think there was some appearance money. I don't think it's a big thing to.
Oh yeah, there. And
I think
it was like $1,000 or something.
I thought it was $6,000. I think you
at Grandma's.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was.
I know your budget.
Maybe it was.
But it was a pretty good chunk of money. So you can look back with hindsight's always 20/20 vision. Was it a good move, to run two marathons, a 208, and then try to come back with a potentially faster marathon?
No.
Because you I think in your book said you were a locomotive.
Well, Dunn, I recovered very quickly from them, and but when I look back now, that race at Boston I'm talking about really beat me up physically and mentally. Because for 6 months that's all I was thinking about was getting ready for that race, and then it took me so long to recover. And I remember when Mary and I got off the plane in Minneapolis coming back home from Boston, one of the first questions the reporters were asking me, well, Dick, we know you're running Grandma's Marathon in 2 months. You'll probably set a world record. Well, everybody was talking about me setting a world record except me.
There you go.
And Dunn, I was never one that went after records. I went out there to try to be as competitive as I could, and if it happened, it happened.
Give 100%,
and it just kept building and building and as the weeks got closer to Grandma's, more and more media people were on a national basis were calling me, interviewing me, saying I hear you're going for the world record, and I never, ever once said that to anybody. Well, then, about maybe 3 weeks before the race, Scott Keenan, the race director and founder of Grandma's Marathon, good friend of mine, calls me up. He goes, Dick, here's the deal. He goes, I'm bringing in the most highly sophisticated timing system there is. I'm bringing in a guy from Florida named Doc Black. He says there's going to be 3 clocks on the pace car. One's going to be your overall time. One is your pace per mile that you're running. And the other one is your projected winning time. And he goes, and I'm bringing in Dave Babaracki from California to set the pace for the first 15 miles. Now, Dave was the American record holder for 25K at the time. And I'd known Dave and knew who he was. So now, after all of this, I'm thinking, what choice do I have?
Yeah.
And so finally, done. It took me until about 2 weeks before the race when I started to get excited about actually running it.
Yeah. To focus on it.
Yeah. And so, the 1981 Grandma's was, you couldn't have asked for nicer weather. I mean, it was cool, cloudy, no wind. Well, on race morning on the 1982, man, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. There was about a south wind about 15 miles an hour right into our face. And so we get to the start, and I'm thinking, well, what's this going to be like? And the gun goes off, and Babaracki, he jumps out there, and I jump right in behind him. And done. We didn't go very far, and I look back, and nobody came with us. Nobody. So we're running along, and we get into 2, 3, 4 miles, and I'm actually feeling pretty gosh dang good. And I'm looking up at the projected winning time, and it's like in the 2:06s. Yeah. I'm thinking, well, we're on world record pace and then some, that's for sure. And again, the wind was pretty stealthy at that point. So I'm tucked right in behind Babaracki. Well, at about 8 miles, Babaracki moves out to the side and then jumps in behind me. So now I'm breaking the wind.
You're pacing him.
I'm breaking the wind for the pace setter. And about a mile later, he drops out. So done. Here I am out on the course. The pace setter drops out. There is, and I'm not bragging, I'm just selling the fact, there is nobody behind me. It's like I'm out there on a solo run.
There were 4,400 of us behind you, Dick. You just couldn't see us. You were so far off the road.
And so done. I'm looking at the projected winning time, and honest to goodness, every step I took, it got a little slower.
Oh, that would be so mentally. It's like it's slipping away.
And then done. So I'm out there all by myself. And you know how they have pockets of good crowds out there? I'd run by the crowds. And like nobody was even clapping or nothing. And you remember a guy named Bob Bright?
I remember the name.
Yeah, Bob was the race director for Chicago Marathon. And him and Fred Lebo would always be out going for the top athletes in the fall races because they're held at about the same time. Well, Bob's on the back of a motorcycle, and he's going to these crowds. Start cheering for this guy. So I get to halfway, and done. At halfway, you can look across Lake Superior, and you can see that gosh dang aerial bridge at the finish line. And, I was hot. I was slowing down. Well, then I got a gosh dang, somehow a pebble got into my shoe and worked to the front of my foot. Well, I always ran up on the balls of my feet, even for marathons. Well, it got in there, and every step I took done, that gosh dang little rock got deeper and deeper and deeper into the front of my foot. It was like stepping on a cactus every time my left foot come down. Well, I should have just stopped and got it out of there, but you know how we are. Oh,
it would
if I stop,
you at least 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah, if I stop, the whole field's going to go flying by me. So anyhow, I finally, I'm coming through downtown and I take that last turn and get to the finish line. And we were just discussing this off the air, but when I cross that finish line, the year before it was a look of like almost disbelief and so happy.
Joy.
Yeah. This year it was like more of a smile of relief, like, thank the good Lord this is over with.
I'm going to back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, everybody in the Midwest, all the runners, I know I was fit, Randy Fisher.
Yeah.
All the guys from the Twin Cities, you know, I could start naming names, Tony Shaughnessy, Mike Palmquist. I mean, we can go on, Ralph Edwards, just great group of guys. We all signed up. And, you know, I remember I called up Scott Keenan. You know, I was a 2:19 marathoner.
Yeah.
And so you call up Scott, and you go, Scott, I'd like to come run the race. He goes, we want to have you come run the race. He goes, Mike, here's what we'll do. We'll give you a free entry, and I'll get you a motel room for, you know, so really you just have to get yourself here. And I said, I can do that. Thanks, Scott. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
Can I get a free entry, which probably saves you like $20 or something like that. And a hotel room probably saved me like $30 or whatever. Well, and so Randy Fisher, who had finished third, I think in 79 or 80.
You're right.
So Scott always brought Randy up and you know, pretty sure same deal, got him in the hotel room, free entry, all that. So Randy and I, we carpooled up there together, and I had an address for my hotel. And, you know, I'm sure every motel in the Duluth area wants to have a part of the Grandma's Marathon.
Right.
You know, so they want to be on the sponsor list. And so this little, I don't remember, I'll say it was a travel lodge or whatever, but I am not kidding you, Beards. It was like 6 miles out of Duluth. And Randy's was down in Duluth, his hotel. You know, Scott didn't know we were coming up together, didn't put us in the same hotel. And so Randy dropped me off at this motor lodge or whatever, about 7 miles out of Duluth. And he goes, Mike, how are you going to get to you had to get to the buses at the finish line to get bussed up to Two Harbors. The next morning I go, and I looked in the parking lot full of runners. I mean, there you can just tell, you know, they're all runners there staying at the hotel. I said, Fish, Randy, I'll be fine. I said, I'll just hitch a ride.
Right.
I'll just ask around tonight and say, who's going to the radius? Can I ride to the?
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
You know, runners are that way. I wasn't worried about it. So I got in my hotel room, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, hadn't touched anything, my suitcase, and I'm just sitting there thinking, how am I going to get anything to eat tonight? Like, how do I get supper?
So you were out in the bush, you were kind of out in the bush.
I'm 7 miles out. I don't have a car. You know, they didn't have DoorDash back in those days.
I know.
So I don't know why, but I called I don't know how I got a hold of you. And either you had already told me, Mike, we're staying at the Radisson, call us when you get to town, something like that. And so I called, and you or Mary answered the phone, and Mike, where you at? And I told you my story. I said, Beards, I'm out at the motor lodge, I don't know, about 6 miles west of Duluth or something. I go, I'm trying to figure out, you know, how I'm going to get some supper. And you go, we'll be right over to get you. And so you came over and picked me up. That sanitary thing was still over the stool.
Right.
Like I hadn't used nothing. And I left, and with my suitcase, and you said, you come stay with Mary and I.
Yeah.
And you're staying at the Radisson, that freaking round hotel. It's like at the 25-mile mark.
Right.
And you go, Mike, Don, we got 2 double beds. You just bunk. We'd done stuff like this. Before. You jump in one bed, Mary, and I'll be in the other. And I go, you sure? And you go, yeah, no, it'll be fine. You're not staying out in that goddamn motor lodge, you know, and then trying to hitchhike your way into the store.
Yeah,
he goes, you just
have to sleep with a bed full of cockroaches or something.
You just stay with me. And I said, awesome. And so I really don't recall, but we must have went out and had supper somewhere. Pasta. I remember we ate a bunch of pasta. And I remember now everybody who's listening to this, Beards is such a good friend. Here's how done. Don't take this personal, but the night before a race, I kind of like to just, and I called you the werewolf. It's like the full moon come out, and he turns into the wolf man.
Oh,
and
terrible.
He goes, so if I don't say, and I go, well, Beards, I'm fine. You know, because you and I are like chatty Cathys all the time. And you're like, I kind of go into my shell, and you were afraid I would be offended.
Right.
By your race prep.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we're good. We're good.
Right.
And so I kind of just, I don't know how I did it if I didn't say much to you. But I just remember then we got to the hotel room. It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. We're just going to watch TV because why you try to even sleep when you're not in it for a while. And I remember the coolest thing, and I think Mary did this for you at a lot of races, and she did it that night, and she did it for me. She sewed our race numbers on
Yes.
our
I kind of forgot about that.
I'd never seen that before. I hate pinning those damn.
Me
I
too.
can't ever get it straight.
Right.
And if you pull your jersey and then pin it, you get this big gap
Yeah.
in the number or something. And then later you look and the numbers tore because your
Right.
jersey pulled on the safety pin so much it tore. Then the numbers flopping around on your
Exactly.
chest. And so Mary would take a needle and thread. And it wasn't like she, tiny little
Right.
stitches, but she just stitched that thing on. It just laid perfectly flat. And it's like, this is so cool. I've got my number sewed onto my jersey.
Exactly.
So then we get up, and I don't have any recollection of breakfast if you ordered room
Nor do
service,
I.
And we probably ate. But you go, done. They're giving me a lift in a limo to the starting line, and you come with me. You're not going to ride the bus.
Right.
I think I had a bus pass.
Yeah,
You have to have
probably.
a pass to get on the bus for the hour ride on the bus up to the
Right.
start. He goes, so I was kind of like Houston in '81. When we came down to the lobby, I was attached at the hip to the Beards because I wasn't going any. Beards wasn't moving without me.
No.
Right there. So we get into this limo, and there's a nice like Lincoln
Right.
Continental, and I can't remember. You and I slid into the back, and all I was Kim Wrinkle. Was Kim Wrinkle in
He
the
might
back
have-
there with us?
yeah.
Yeah. I think Kim Wrinkle was sitting next to me.
I think I brought him in too with us.
Yes, he might have been.
On the
and then
limo.
in the front seat was a guy named Will Elbers, and Will was an excellent runner. Ran for East Coast.
And Will was good.
Yeah, Will was a 2:17 marathoner, and I remember Will was pretty good. You had your race face on, and Will, I remember him turn around and he go, "Hey, Dick," and you say, "Hey, Will," or something like that, and he goes, "Dick, I work for Brooks, and he kind of just said, if there's anything Brooks can ever do for you, don't hesitate to ask."
Yeah.
And I guess he was just letting it be known if New Balance upsets you and you're looking around, gee,
Right.
call me up. But he didn't. He wasn't pushy about
No,
it or anything.
no.
And he goes, and then you introduced me to Will, and you go, "Will, I'd like you to meet my best friend Mike Dunlap." And he goes, "Mike's a 2:19 marathoner at Houston, and he's in really good shape
Yeah.
and stuff." And Will goes, "Oh, nice to meet you, Mike." He goes, "Hey, Mike." He said, "We're looking at maybe starting a Brooks racing
That's
team."
right.
And so, he said, "Was this something you'd be interested in?" And it's almost like saying, "How would you like to win $1 million?"
Right.
Like,
No
"Nah, I don't think-"
kidding.
And so I tried to go, "Will, that sounds great. Yeah, I'd be very interested in that." And he goes, "Oh, good. He goes, "How about after the race, we'll connect and I'll get your information." And I said, "Cool." And so I was like, "Hey, this is good." So we rode up to the start, and you went. I have no recollection. You went off to do your thing. I went off to do mine. Randy Fisher and I found each other, and we lined up together. And the starting line, it's pretty wide. I don't know how wide that highway is up in.
It
Two
is
Harbors.
wide.
It's wide. You can probably get 40 to 50 runners.
Oh, yeah.
Side by side across that road. And I once saw a photo, and I found myself and Randy Fisher and you, and we're all lined up in that front row with all these other guys that we knew half of them. And the gun went off, and yeah, you were out of there. I remember, there was no thought like, well, let's go with him. Yeah, no, there was no going. I think
nobody
you went out at
came.
4:46. I think it was, or 4:48 that first mile, and it was like, well, Beards is gone. And I remember Randy Fisher and I we started together, and I said, "Randy, this wasn't our first rodeo, and it was a headwind, and
Exactly.
the sun was shining, and it wasn't getting any cooler out there." And I said, "Randy, I think these first 5 miles, we just want to chill. I think we want to get these first 5 over like they haven't even happened."
Right.
And he goes, "Right. No, I'm with you, Mike. I'm with you." So I remember Randy and I tried to just kind of, we were probably running 5:15 to 5:20
Yeah.
pace, but trying to make it just like it was a training run, just try to get through that first 5K, 5 miles, 10 miles. And then, it got serious, Beards. After about the 5 mile mark, I don't know what happened to Randy, but I kind of noticed he was starting to kind of fall off my shoulder.
Yeah.
And, you just run your own pace. And the next thing you know, it's freaking hot. The sun is
It
down.
was hot.
And Brooks, you made the painter's cap a thing at
Yeah.
Boston in 82. Well, guess what? Well, Will Elbers, before the race, had handed me a Brooks painter's cap.
No way.
Yes. And if you look on our website, I'm going to put on some pictures. And I'm wearing the dang thing, and it says Brooks. Right up front.
Awesome.
Now, you should have got a kickback or some kind of endorsement deal. The painter, Bill Rogers had the white painter gloves.
Yes.
He kind of made those a thing. You made the painter's
Right.
because it's so lightweight.
Yes.
Like you said, it's made out of paper.
Exactly.
And so it's not any weight. And the white reflects the heat.
Right.
So it keeps your head cool. And if you get ice under it, it holds it
Perfect.
in there and all this. So I had this goddamn white painter's cap on, and I'm glad I did because the sun was beating down. And all I remember is getting about Lemon Drop Hill coming into Duluth.
Now, Dan, what place were you in at that point? Do you remember?
Probably, I think I hung in I was in about 10th of.
Yeah.
I was picking guys off because a lot of guys were there, and like I think we're there to run for a time, and it wasn't a day to run for time.
Right.
It was a day to run at your 100% potential and take the result you
Exactly.
get. And I'm kind of thinking I did that, and but a lot of guys didn't. A lot of guys, when you're passing people in the last 10K of a marathon, it feels really good.
It does.
But I remember at 20 miles with about 21, Mike Just. Now, I don't know if you remember, Mike was from North Dakota. He went to, I think Dickinson State, and he's just a super, super nice guy, and he's a Mike. And he came up alongside me, and he goes, "Hey, Mike Just." I go, "Oh, hey, Mike." We kind of knew each other.
Right.
And he was looking, and he said, "I feel good." He goes, "Let's try to catch some of these guys ahead of us." And I remember saying to him, I said, "Mike, go for it, bud." I said, "I am right where I have to be." It was one of those, you're running at that pace, Beards, where if you pick it up, I don't see this ending well for me.
Exactly.
If I stay where I'm at, I was right at that
And
threshold.
Dunn, you were so good at that. You knew what your limit was.
I had to. Well, you learned the hard way. It's what happened.
Right.
And I remember I kind of said, "Mike, go for it, bud." I said, I can't. I'm just going to stay. And he goes, "Oh, okay, well, good luck, Mike. Hang in there." And the guy took off, and he ended up finishing 5th place and ran like 2:19. He broke 2:20 that day. I was 2:21:10 and got 10th. And I always tell the story. There's a runner. Do you remember Tom Anzak?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, he was in 9th place, and I saw him that whole last mile, and he kept looking back at me. Because when you're in the top 10, you don't want to give up a place.
No.
And I was closing on him, and we came around the corner, and you're going, that's a long goddamn finishing.
It is.
What's that, like a quarter mile?
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's lined with people. And as I kept coming closer, he kept going, looking over, and just running faster. And I kind of thought, am I going to try to outsprint this guy? And I don't sure what place we're even in, 9th or 10th place. He held me off.
He did.
He ran 2:21:09. I ran 2:21:10. There's one of those situations when you're, and you might have said, "Don, geez, you could have, if you had nipped him, I would have got 9th instead of 10th."
Right.
At that point, you're kind of like, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, take it, because it was a hurting unit. They have a picture of me at the finish shoot. I don't know who took these pictures. I think Mary did. I think Mary might have had
probably
might have had the camera out there, and she was taking some photos. And it's me walking through the finish chute with my Brooks hat on, and there's this aid worker, and he's got a Red Cross T-shirt on. He's like a medic, EMT or whatever. And I think they had him out there, and they must have warned these guys, be ready, because there's going to be some hurting units coming across here. A hot, headwindy day. And I crossed the finish line, and you slow to a walk, and I think I might have said good job to Tom or something. And I remember they had water, and I grabbed a cup of water and started drinking it. I mean, you talk about parched. And this aid station guy walks up beside me, goes, "You doing all right?" And I go, "Yep, I'm good." And I kept walking, and I noticed he's walking beside me, and he goes, "You sure you're good?" And I go, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm thinking, go take care of somebody who needs you." And he keeps walking beside me, and at that point, I'm thinking, damn, I must not look so good, because this guy's not going to let me. He wasn't until I got to the end of the shoot. They unhook the little thing off your number. Or they scan it. I don't remember how they did it back in '82. But this guy, I think I was, everybody was suffering. Heat exhaustion, pretty much. And I don't know. You and I have talked about it. You always wonder, like, well, on a better day, I wonder what that effort was worth. Yeah, and you can't really.
It's hard to.
You can't. I think I've heard people say that day cost 4 or 5 minutes.
And done. It very well could have. I mean, you were in great shape. If there would have been a cooler day with a little bit of a tailwind.
Oh. I think I was. I think we all went there running in your vapors, if you would. Because Beards just ran 2:08. He ran 2:09 at this course the year before.
Right.
He's coming back. He's going to do something off the freaking chart. And if we get caught up in that, it's kind of like Boston. If you get there on a right day, And that, I mean, we'll talk about
Yes.
Boston in a future episode in '83 when I went out
Right.
there. I got a perfect day and got caught up in the pack. It's almost like the Tour de France. We have the Peloton,
Yeah.
and the Peloton is rolling 27, 28, 30 miles an hour. But if you're in the middle of that Peloton, you know how much work you're doing? Not much.
Little.
Because
Right.
of the aerodynamics. Well, now in running, you don't have that same aerodynamic, function going on.
No, a little bit though, right?
A little bit.
Yeah.
But there's a psychological function,
Right.
of you're running fast, but everybody around you is running fast. So fast is kind of like the norm. Where if you're
Exactly.
running by yourself, and maybe that's what happened to you at Grandma's, you were still running fast, but by yourself. And I don't know if
Right.
you've ever gone out on a training run alone. I remember Frank Shorter once said, he goes, people think I can just go out on a 15-mile training run and run 5-minute miles. And he goes, I can't.
Right.
He can do 15 miles at 5-minute pace in a race.
Right.
Because then you've got
that was me too.
the prep, you've got the mental focus, you've got
Yes.
all that. But he goes, it's not that easy.
No.
It's not that easy. And so, but in a race situation, it's all unique. So yeah, I remember, and I finished and headed in, and I looked, and you were sitting at the table with Phil Koppas, and I can't remember who the top three of you guys were that day, but Phil was a 2:10 marathoner.
Right.
He ran 2:16. You were like 2 minutes ahead of second and third place.
Yeah.
And you're going to look it up.
Oh,
And
so Matthew Wilson got second.
Matt Wilson out of Virginia, I think.
Ran
And-
2:16:20, and Phil Koppas got third, 2:16:30.
And those guys were 2:10, 2:11 marathoners. You were 2:08. So everybody's times were probably that 4 to 5
Yeah.
minutes slower, which is not. It is what it is. You had to be there that day to lay it on the line. But I just remember you were doing the interview thing, talking a mile a minute, and I think you were so relieved, to come home and to win the race again. I mean,
Done.
that's your number one goal. I got to win the race. And number
I'd
two
never
is-
felt more pressure on
to
me in a
win a
race
race.
than I did at the 1982 Grandmas.
Yeah, that's because you're such the overwhelming favorite. You had nowhere to go but down, basically.
Right.
So anything less than a world record win
Well,
is going to be
and,
disappointing.
and I almost felt like I let people down,
Yeah.
even though I won it, but I didn't set a world record.
Well,
You know?
anyway, the race ended. I jogged or walked or crawled back to the Radisson, and you eventually got back there. And now here's some fun stories. These are memories I will never forget because your dad was there, and
Yes.
Coach Squires is there. I can't remember if I think Mary's folks were they there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And your dad said we're going to go out and have lunch. I think they had reservations already made, and they said, Mike, you're coming because I was kind of like the adopted son at
Right.
this point because it's Dick and Mary and Dunn, the three musketeers. If Karen
Right.
had been there, it would have been 4. But they said, "Oh, Mike, you're coming too. You're coming
Of
too."
course.
And so we went to this restaurant. I don't remember the name of it.
I think we went to Fitger's.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yes.
Your dad was so gracious, and he order Mike whatever you want. I remember him selling that, and I thought, okay. And Coach Squires, he's talking a mile a minute, and it was just such a cool atmosphere.
It was.
It's kind of like the Entourage. Maybe I've never seen that movie or
Right.
TV show, but yeah, I was kind of part of the Entourage, and people, total strangers, were coming up to you and congratulating you. They're patting you on the back. I don't remember if you probably signed a few autographs. But it was like I was like at the table with the dude with you, and it was just it was very cool.
Don, thank you for bringing that memory up because I forgot about that. But it was at Fitger's
It was a great-
restaurant, overlooked the
Yep.
lake, and it was one of my dad's favorite places to eat in Duluth. And I remember that now vividly.
It was just it was an awesome time. I mean, there was no. It was like the day was done. It came out.
Yeah.
I was tickle pink, you were tickle pink. We were all
Right.
happy. I don't remember what happened after the dinner. We went back, laid down, put our feet up or whatever. I remember at night, we went out for malted milkshakes. I don't know if you remember this or not.
Oh, at the malt shop right down there.
Oh, I just remember I had a craving, and I love ice cream. And usually when you're training, you're trying not to, you're like you ever had to worry about your weight, but you usually don't indulge in a lot of that kind
Right.
of stuff if you're training pretty hard. But we went out that night, and Barrett's, correct me if I'm wrong, the wind started blowing, and it was, I almost said freaking cold.
Yes.
After being so hot that day.
A front came through.
Oh my God. I had like a windbreaker jacket.
I remember that now, Don.
And we were standing, I was freezing to death.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go back to the Radisson. Our bellies are swollen with malted milkshake now. And we went to bed. And, of course, the next day, what did we do, Beards?
All right. Next day, 45-minute run, easy with Dunn, 6.5 miles. Felt quite good, then left for home.
Yeah, you felt quite good. My legs, I just wanted, it was, hey, we're going to go for a run. Awesome. It's kind of like when Bill Rogers called you up at Stockholm.
Right.
Beards, you want to go for a run? Sure. And, well, I went running with you. My legs hurt so bad, but here's what vivid memories. We're running around downtown Duluth. I don't know. You kind of knew that you picked the route. And running easy for you. And cars are leaving town. All the runners are backed up, hitting the road. And we're running down the side of the road, and we're getting honks, waves, people rolling down their window, and Beardsley, and they're waving at us. And we're waving back, and it was like, this is what Dick's life is like now. It's like, but it was so much fun. I tell you, it was just a riot.
Then
I think I met up with Randy and his wife Sherry. Hey, hauled my butt back to Sioux Falls. You headed back down to Rush City or wherever it was.
Yeah.
But so that was halfway through that summer of 82.
Well, done. And let me back up with a quick sidebar on this that Grandma's Marathon. So my dad, on the next day after Grandma's, it's always Father's Day, and so my dad was a he'd admit if he was still alive, he was a pretty heavy drinker. And the doctors always would tell Bill, if you want to be around for your grandkids and whatnot, you got to quit drinking. And so every once in a while, my dad would, quit drinking for a couple weeks and he'd be back at it. So on May 1st of 82, he said, I'm going to quit drinking. So he'd come into Grandma's. So 6 weeks later, he still hadn't had any drink. So I remember I gave my dad a Father's Day card, and I put a check in there for $500 made out to my dad. And in the little memo part, I put pop money, for soda pop. And I told I handed it to my dad. I said, now don't open this till you get home. And I remember my dad finally gets home, and Mary and I are driving back to the cabin, and my dad calls up, and he's just sobbing. He's just sobbing and thanking me and whatnot. And done every year for the next 14 and a half years after that, every May 1st, I always called my dad and told him how proud I was of him. And he never had another drink in those 14 and a half years.
That is commendable. I mean, that's
And I always wonder, people think, well, do you think it was that $500 check you gave your dad that just got him? I said, I don't know what it was. I don't care what it was. But and then he was like a completely different person.
Isn't it amazing? I'm trying to think of the right words, and I'm going to fail at it. How nothing's forever, nothing's carved in stone. Change is possible at any moment, and positive change and negative change. I just, when you hear about somebody, and Beards, I'm not going to get into your personal, with your dad, in your opinion, I hope I'm not overstepping the line.
No.
Was he an alcoholic?
Oh, yeah.
And for him to just, a lot of times they say you can't do it on your own.
No.
You can't do it on your own. You can't do it through pure willpower. Whatever your dad called upon, and I don't know what it was, it worked for him.
Done. And maybe that's some of the willpower I got from him as a runner, because done. My dad, he died of pancreatic cancer 14 and a half years later. But for those 14 and a half years, he never had another drink. But yet he had all kinds of like whiskey and gin, all that in his liquor cabinet, because when his friends came over, he wanted to make sure that if they wanted a drink, they could have a drink, but he never touched it. That is willpower.
Well, and you've done the same thing with me,
Right.
And we'll get into, your story someday about, addiction. And
right.
You don't use any mood-altering substances.
Right.
Artificial. Now, there's a lot of natural mood-altering substances.
Exactly.
Fishing and running and telling stories.
Right.
Those, you use them a lot. But, and yeah, you've always been very comfortable and say, well, Mike, you can order a glass of wine if you want to. And, have a beer if you come over to our house and you have wine there at your Airbnb.
Right. Heck yeah.
But, your dad was a cool dude.
No, he was, and done.
I never saw the other side of him other than the fun side of him.
Right. Well, and, I know we're kind of maybe closing up on time here, but, my dad, when I first told him, when I got out of college, yeah, Dad, I'm going to see how good of a runner I could become. My dad thought I was an idiot. Well, he didn't
like
understand.
Telling somebody I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be a musician.
Right.
And
he didn't understand.
Yeah,
But then when he saw the commitment I had given, my dad became my biggest supporter.
Well, yeah, they came from a different generation where that wasn't even an option.
No.
And we were fortunate to come in the time when, we had life, the culture had changed, and I think, but you kind of proved through your actions. Actions speak louder than words. One last little story. I put it on our website. I got the biggest kick out of it. Back in 1979, I think you'll remember this. You, me, and Randy Fisher met up in Rock Rapids, Iowa. And,
yes.
There was an 8-miler. Back in the day, in the 70s, they had 4-milers, 3-milers,
right.
8-milers. Lennox had a 4th of July 6-mile. The metric system just wasn't really catching on that much, but everybody got on board. But they had an 8-miler, and Randy and I were in Sioux Falls, and we were in great shape. And he had just ran a real good marathon, I think, that year, and I ran Howard Wood 1,500 and my PR 10K. You just won Howard Wood 10-mile, ran like 51 minutes.
Right.
And that was like sometime in late May, early June, this 8-mile road race in Rock Rapids, just 35, 40 miles east of Sioux Falls. So Randy Fisher and I decided to drive over there, and you were coming down, and we said, Beards, come on down and run this 8-miler, and then you were going to go out to Bone Seal with Mary to see her folks. So we all rendezvoused. And Karen, my future wife, we weren't married yet, she actually drove up from Spencer, Iowa to come and kind of be with all of us. So I put this story on our website, but if you never go there, what happened was they we all paid our entry fee, it was like $8 or whatever it was. And they loaded us up on a bus. And I don't know if you remember this. And they drove us 1 mile east of Rock Rapids, and we went 7 miles straight north on a blacktop highway.
Okay.
And we actually crossed into Minnesota somewhere out there.
Oh, we did?
Yes, and down in the middle of nowhere, they had it marked on the road like they had measured it. They stopped the bus. All the runners got off. There was like 40 or 50 of us. And the race director said, all right, we're going to line up here on the starting line. And you run back 7 miles, you get to the highway, take a right, it's 1 mile back into town. And it's like, and he shoots the gun, starts a watch, jumps back on the bus and passes us, driving, because he has to get to the finish line now.
Sure.
So this is how they did road races back in the day. So I remember we three were in pretty good shape, and we kind of were on the bus. You're trying to look around and how fit do some of these other guys look? Because we're racers.
Oh, yeah.
Your goal is to win, and you kind of want to know who your
you betcha.
Is. So I remember we all said, and you, me, and Randy, we said, well, let's take it out. At a good hard pace, and just see who goes with us. And so we took it out. And I don't remember any splits. I don't know if we even had splits. I doubt it. But we ran the first mile, probably sub 5-minute pace.
Yeah.
So we're pretty putting the smack down. And we were all running, and I decided, I turned around to look over my shoulder, which is kind of, when you're running 5-minute pace, it's kind of not very efficient. I couldn't even see anybody. Because there was kind of some rollers, and so the people behind us hadn't even went over the roller behind us.
No.
I remember going, hey, Beards, Fish, I can't even see anybody behind us. So we're like,
probably think we're on the wrong course.
Well, it's like we got 7 miles to go, and it's just the three of us. And we were all such good friends. I mean, Randy Fisher and I were college roommates for 3 years. You and I bonded. You knew Randy. We were all good buds. I always said it was so hard to race Randy and to race you. I mean, you want to beat each other, but at the same time, it's not like, I'm going to try to.
Yeah.
You hate to make other people. I don't know what you hate to make people feel bad. You want everybody to come out of this as a win-win-win. So I think we kind of made a gentleman's agreement. Let's just run steady. Like I would call it tempo. Let's run tempo, which is a hard pace, but not. I'm going to see if I can break these this kind of pace. And we did that, and all the way back, and we turned right, and we crossed the river, Rock Rapids River, I think it is, whatever there. And the park was down below us. We had to do kind of a loop back to the park, and we could see Karen and I think Mary were hanging out down there. And so we came into the park, and we decided, well, let's tie. You know, we're not going to
Yes.
sprint the last 100 yards.
No.
There's nobody behind us. So I'm in the middle, and I've got my left hand. I reach out and grab your right hand, and I reach out with my right hand and grab Randy's left hand, and we're running the last 100 yards to the finish line. And there was a photographer, I didn't know this at the time, took a picture of this. And it shows the three of us running in, me in the middle with my hand holding onto your guys' hands.
Oh,
And
my
you
gosh.
got a big smile on your face. Randy's got a big smile on your face. I got a big grimace on my face. You can't run without using your arms. Have you ever tried running without? Well, my arms are being held out to the side.
That's
and my
right.
little legs are trying to, keep. I'm like, and the look on my face. Anyway, well, I didn't know this picture. We crossed the finish line, and it's like, well, that's over. We ran a good time, 42 minutes and 6
Yeah.
5:17 pace, and we didn't, kill ourselves. All right.
No.
3 years later, Beards runs the Boston Marathon and finishes second in 2:08. And somebody sends me this clipping from Rock Rapids, Iowa, and it's a picture of the three of us with that shot I just described,
Yeah.
coming into the finish with our hands joined, and me trying to run without using my arms. And it says, Boston runner was here. And you read the article, and it says, in 1979, the Rock Rapids 8 Mile had Dick Beardsley, who just finished second at Boston, as a participant in our race. And I said, it's kind of like down here in the South, in New Bern, we have a sign that says, George Washington spent 2 nights here. George Washington slept here. And
Right.
in your case, Dick Beardsley ran here. Your fame, Rock Rapids was so proud of the fact that 3 years earlier, the guy who got second in the Boston Marathon ran in their race.
Oh, my gosh.
It made the paper.
That is funny.
I know. When I read that, it just cracks me up. And so we put that on the website if anybody wants to see it. But Beards, these stories, I tell you, I get done with these, and I am on a high for the rest of the day.
Oh, done.
The adrenaline, the endorphins, the serotonin,
I know.
all that oxytocin,
Well,
all that great stuff.
I can't wait till next week. And,
I can't either. We'll come up with some more.
Well, for sure. We want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any questions for Dunn and myself or comments about the show, you can contact us directly here on our website at beardsanddunpod.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or X, all at Beards and Dunn Pod.
And on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe. And if you want to put some comments, we hardly ever get any comments, which occasionally somebody go, that was cool, that was funny, or something like that. But I always look for some feedback to see if there's anything,
Absolutely.
People want to know. I know we don't talk a lot about training and the workouts we were doing, and I love your log because you can go back and dig through that thing, and I've got mine too. That
Right.
Sometimes we look at. But Beards, it's always a joy and a pleasure. And I can't wait till next time.
Hey, have a great week there, buddy.
You too, bud. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.